I want to report a double murder. Okay, picture this. You're working the desk at a local police station, you pick up the phone, and that is what you hear. But it's not panicked. The voice on the other end is totally calm, completely controlled, and just emotionless. The caller then starts rattling off precise directions and really specific details about a crime scene, details that literally only the person who pulled the trigger could possibly know. And then, click, they hang up. It's chilling, right? That one terrifyingly calm phone call took what police thought was just a random act of violence and turned it into a completely twisted psychological game.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the Zodiac, the shadow that never left. We're looking at one of the most frustrating, chilling, and just outright baffling unsolved mysteries in American history. We're talking about a phantom who absolutely terrorized Northern California. But he didn't just kill. He actually created this terrifying new blueprint for media manipulation, and he fundamentally changed how the public viewed their own safety. He taunted the cops, he terrified the masses, and then he just vanished. Let's get into it.
Section 1. The Shadow Arrives. Let's go back to December 1968.
So, it starts on a quiet December night in 1968. It's the kind of night where absolutely nothing feels wrong. A car is parked on a lonely road, two young people inside, completely oblivious to the fact that someone is watching them from the dark. No footsteps, no warning, just the sudden crack of silent gunfire. By the time the police got there, the killer was long gone. No witnesses, no clear motive, just the total dead end. But then, months later, he comes back. He targets another isolated spot, but this time there's a survivor. And what this survivor describes is wild. They describe the attacker as being incredibly calm. Not rushed, not jittery at all. Almost like he had done this before, or totally knew he would do it again. And literally just minutes after this second attack, that infamous, cold-blooded phone call was made to the police station.
Section 2. The Killer's Deadly Game. This is where the letters and ciphers come into play.
So that initial phone call, that proved to investigators that they weren't just dealing with random, isolated murders. And days later, things escalated. Newspapers all across California started getting something incredibly chilling in the mail. Letters from the killer. But the crazy thing is, they weren't frantic or chaotic rants. They were handwritten, super precise, and just totally cold. And inside these letters were ciphers. Now, if you aren't familiar, a cipher is basically a secret or disguised way of writing, a code. These coded messages came with really strict demands. Basically, publish these on the front page or I'm going to kill again. He was actively manipulating the authorities and the media, literally holding the entire public hostage with his words.
Now, when authorities finally managed to crack one of those super complex ciphers, they were obviously hoping for a confession, right? Or at least a clue to who this guy was. But instead, what they got was far worse. The decoded message read, and I quote, "Killing is fun, collecting people for the afterlife." It was also in these letters that the sender finally gave himself a name, Zodiac. And this cipher proves a really terrifying point about his motive. This wasn't a crime of passion or some blind rage. For the Zodiac, this was all about ultimate control, psychological dominance, and honestly, pure terrifying amusement.
Which brings us to Section 3, Terror in the Daylight. This is where we see a massive change in his pattern. Just as the public and the police kind of thought they had a handle on his pattern, the killer totally changed the rules. This next attack didn't happen in the dead of night. It happened on a peaceful, sunny afternoon, right near a lake. A couple was just relaxing there, and out of nowhere, a man approaches them wearing this bizarre black hood with a weird symbol drawn right on the chest. But here's the wild part. He didn't just attack wildly. He spoke to them, calmly, even politely, as if the horrific violence he was about to inflict was just a normal, everyday social interaction. Then, without any warning, he unleashes sudden, brutal violence, and when it was over, he didn't run. He literally just walked away, like he had absolutely nothing in the world to fear.
Section 4. Paranoia and Prime Suspects. A city gripped by fear.
You can only imagine the intense psychological toll these unpredictable killings were taking. I mean, it is absolutely vital to grasp how deeply this altered everyday life for an entire region. San Francisco was fundamentally changed. People just stopped going out at night altogether. Parents were terrified, refusing to let their kids out of their sight. The paranoia in the air was so thick that, every shadow felt alive. It felt like the killer could be absolutely anywhere, just hiding in plain sight. And all the while, those chilling, taunting letters just kept arriving, each one somehow feeling more terrifying than the last.
So desperate to stop this absolute terror, police are chasing down literally every possible lead they can find. And as they're sifting through mountains of evidence, one specific name just kept surfacing:
over and over again. Who was Arthur Lee Allen?
Well, Arthur Lee Allen fit the killer's profile remarkably well. On paper, it looked like a slam dunk. He matched key physical descriptions from witnesses, and there was a massive pile of circumstantial evidence pointing right in his direction. But here was the insanely frustrating reality for the investigators. No matter how much pointed to him, there was never quite enough hard, definitive proof to actually make an arrest. It was like the case was always slipping just out of reach.
Section 5. The sudden silence. The killings abruptly stopped.
Right when the city's paranoia hit its absolute peak, something totally jarring happened. There was no warning, there was no grand explanation, just silence. The taunting letters abruptly stopped coming in. The killings completely ceased. This phantom who had absolutely dominated the headlines simply vanished into thin air. He left the police with no arrest, no true identity, and honestly, absolutely no answers.
Which brings us to our final section, Section 6, an unsolved legend, leaving us with endless questions.
As the years turned into decades, we've obviously seen some incredible breakthroughs in other cold cases. Take the Golden State Killer, right? Another terrifying phantom of California. He was finally captured decades later, all thanks to modern DNA testing and groundbreaking new technology. It was a huge win, and it proved that even the darkest mysteries can eventually be dragged into the light. But the Zodiac Killer? He remains completely unsolved. Despite investigators revisiting the case time and time again, and throwing literally every single modern investigative tool we have at the evidence, his identity remains completely locked in the dark.
And that leaves us with some endless, frankly terrifying questions. What actually happened to the man behind the mask? Did he simply die, taking all his dark secrets to the grave? Did he change his name, pack up, and move away to live some quiet, normal life somewhere? But I think the most unsettling thought of all is that he might have just walked past people every single day. He might have been sitting in his own living room, drinking a cup of coffee, watching the evening news report on his very own crimes.
So maybe today, he really is nothing more than a ghost story. Some killers leave behind evidence. He left behind a legend. But honestly, looking at all this forces us to ask a pretty chilling question. If someone so brazen, so public, can completely slip through the cracks of history like that, who else might be hiding in plain sight right now? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. It's a heavy one, but an important piece of history. Until next time, stay curious.